Hey everyone, Goji Fan Predator 2003 here with another review. Now, I have a lot of things in the background today, and that's for a bit of a reason. Plus, just for fun, if any of you know what these are, if any of you know the names of each of these creatures in the background, post them in the comments below, please. And I might consider doing a review of them. Now, on to the main point of this. For today, we're going to be reviewing Gomora. Now, this one isn't really the very first Gomora that came out, although I do remember that this one is based off 1966 one. Though it's based off the very first one, it's not the very first Gomora per se, but it certainly does well. Now, I have a card for this one, but it's not really the type you'd expect. As soon as I find it, at least. My goodness. This may take me a bit, so bear with me, everyone. Aha! Oh, shoot. Oh boy. I may have a bit of a problem here. Hang on. Okay, I think I got it now. Yeah. Okay. Here it is. Now, I don't really know the name of this company, but, well, they certainly bring back some of the old figures, or at least some of the old classic big ones, instead of these, Series 500 series, these Ultra Monster 500 series monsters we've been getting lately. But, so far, it does well. It does well. Now, for a bit of history with Gomora here, he first appeared in 1966 in the original Ultraman, and he's pretty much the only monster that Ultraman had a very rough time defeating, as Gomora was known as the Monster Prince for very good reasons. As, like Godzilla, he's the king of the monsters. For Gamera, I'm not really sure what to say about him, but he's certainly something around the monster ranks. But Gomora here, he's known as the Prince, and that's what they named the episode he's in. Of course, he actually appeared in 2 episodes of the original Ultraman. He was eventually defeated by the JSDF, the Science Patrol, and Ultraman. Took a bit of time, but, well, they eventually killed him after he destroyed Osaka Castle. Now, his next appearance would be in the Ultraman 80s, I believe, or Ultraman Powered. Whichever one came first. There were basically 2 different Gomoras, though. The one that appeared in Powered, he looks a bit like a water buffalo, and the scientist in there said that he lives like a water buffalo, so that explains why he looks partially like one. As for his Ultraman 80s appearance, he looked a bit different. He appeared a bit more roundish about the skin flaps, I believe. He had 4 horns on his head. Well, 5 horns, including the nasal one. And he also shot missiles or rockets out of his hands for some reason. Both were defeated by Ultraman and military a bit, but let's just say none of the Gomora family go down without a fight. Anyways, he has a very long history. Now, another appearance he would be in. Oh yeah. It would also be in one of the Ultra 8 Brothers movies. However, this would also be a crossover. He gained the ability to summon a rainbow beam, and was one of the monsters that appeared in that special, as there were others that arose straight out of the earth. They were all defeated eventually. Of course, as I keep saying, they don't go down without a fight. So everything was pretty much a bit of a disaster. But, moving on. See here, Gomora's next appearance wouldn't be for quite some time, as it would be quite a while. However, he would appear in Ultraman Max as a sort of experimented dinosaur that was brought back to life or so. And, well, if anyone who tries to tamper with monsters, they're sure to get results, but they're not necessarily good. As to be expected. But moving on. Since Gomora came back, ever since the Gomora escaped, well, there was the first sighting. I'm sorry if I'm not exactly being steady or right on in this review, but it's certainly something. Okay, I'm just doing my best, so please respect that. Anyways, moving on. In Ultraman Max, there were a couple people in the mountains, or in the forests, I believe, and then a small Gomora appears right out of the ground, and they start running away, and the Gomora just goes back underground, as it seemed to be frightened by the people more than they were of it. However, that same small Gomora would appear again in an abandoned laboratory underground, and it would be underneath rubble. Actually, no. It would be practically killed in some rubble caused by a bigger Gomora. Now, as time progressed, the bigger Gomora appeared. Ultraman Max appeared. He had to cut off its tail. Of course, he still had to get rid of the tail somehow. So he eventually got rid of the tail, then eventually got rid of Gomora, as once the tail is severed, it starts moving around on its own. However, it's best to have the tail on the monster than off, as that'll just make the situation worse. Now, after that, the Gomora in Max, the same suit will be used for Ultraman Mebius, as after Mebius defeats Red King, surprisingly, right after Gomora, Red King turned into Gomora, due to the fact that it was one of the super beasts, I believe, summoned by Apple. So, once Red King turned into Gomora, then things started to get a little more rough for Ultraman Mebius, as every punch he threw, it didn't do anything. Mebius caught off his tail, but I don't believe that did anything better. Eventually defeated, along with Guts. Actually, no. Guy's crew, they helped in defeating Gomora and Red King, but, well, with substantial results. Anyways. However, after Ultraman Mebius, there was Ultra Galaxy, Mega Monster Battle. He appeared as one of the main monsters, actually the main monster in Mega Monster Battle. And he practically lose very little, only lost a few fights. And he would be one of the Balanizer monsters that Ray has. In fact, Gomora is actually Ray's very first Balanizer monster. But more on that later. Now, for the rest of the series, Gomora would appear in practically every episode. So, in the 13th episode, though, he evolves into EX Gomora. And, well, you can be sure that that final episode predicted some results. Surprisingly, Gomora was still alive. He was just badly injured. However, Ray turned into Raymon. Then Raymon had Gomora evolve into EX Gomora. And then EX Gomora went after Zeton and King Joe Black. In the background, you can see King Joe Black around there. And moving on, so once Gomora defeats King Joe Black and destroys Zeton, then that's basically the last we see of EX Gomora for quite some time. Until Ultra Galaxy Neo. In Ultra Galaxy Neo, Gomora would appear in all the episodes again. However, he also gains another form, Rayonic Burst. Now that can be achieved in two ways. Either when Ray is enraged, or when Ray controls all of his anger and is still able to maintain control of Rayonic Burst Gomora. Either way, to be honest, I think the Rayonic Burst Gomora is basically just a repaint of the old Gomora suit used in Ultra Galaxy Mega Monster Battle. And, well, I'm not sure how they accomplished that, but they certainly brought back a bit of the old. However, moving on. In the final episode, Ray's Gomora turns into Rayonic Burst Gomora to help fight Armored Darkness. However, that didn't work out well, and he was joined by Red King as well. So, after Rayonic Burst Gomora and Red King evolved into EX Gomora and EX Red King, then the tables would be turned onto Armored Darkness. And Rayblood was inside Armored Darkness at the time, so I can't really say he was doing it per his will. But, anyways, Rayonic, I know. Anyways, that's the last we see of them, and the planet is destroyed, but they managed to escape. And until Ultra Galaxy Legends will we see Gomora again. Now, Ultra Galaxy Legends, Gomora would appear fighting against Zaragas, and Zaragas would be defeated by Gomora's Oscillatory Wave. That's one of his abilities, but more on that later. And since Zaragas, this one I'm assuming was relatively inexperienced, so I'm saying that was pretty much an easy one for Gomora to win against. However, he would appear again in the movie. This time he would fight against Black King on the planet of the Ultras, M78, I believe. And once Black King is defeated, the same way as Zaragas, then they would make their way to the monster graveyard, where Gomora fights many monsters, some of which he fought before, others new to him. And unfortunately, he was switched sides once Ray became enraged and turned into Rayonic Burst. And then Gomora turned into Rayonic Burst Gomora, and they turned on the Ultraman. So, well, you can never... Of course, Gomora was out of control, but not exactly by his own will. But anyways, after Rayonic Burst Gomora finally returns to Ray, Ultra 7 is down and out for the rest of the movie. Well, for the rest of the Monster Graveyard part of the movie. And then Gomora would appear as EX Gomora straight out of the Balanizer, as he would have to fight off Beriodora, basically the gigantic monster made of all the other monster souls within the monster graveyard. He would get swiped by his tail and fall down to the ground, taking a lot of damage. However, he wasn't out for long, as once Ray got a hold of the Giga Balanizer, the whole monster started to... Beriodora began to recoil a bit, and that led a chance to everyone in the monster graveyard to give it their all against Beriodora. EX Gomora used his Oscillatory Wave, or Oscillatory Beam, I guess, against Beriodora's chest and maybe legs, and that seems to be the last we see of Gomora for a while. Until, that is, in some of the other Ultraman Zero movies, where Ray and Gomora appear a bit more prominently. there are many movies and appearances I keep forgetting. There was the little saga, 2 movies, Ultraman Zero versus Dark Cloud Zero, where Gomora would have to fight Mecha Gomora, his robotic double, and he would stand a disadvantage in the two first fights they have, or yeah, 2 first fights they have, and once Gomora comes back up, then when Ultraman Zero comes back, then Gomora is then repowered again, I suppose, and he stands a bit more of a chance against fighting Mecha Gomora now. Probably saves up on energy in that, but more on that later. Now, since Gomora, after Mecha Gomora was defeated, it would be one of the last times we see Gomora. However, he would also appear again in Ultraman Zero movies, along with Ray. My god, my brain is hurting from all this. Anyways, after Gomora... okay, you know what? I'm just gonna skip all the movies and go on to the next parts of Gomora's appearances. Gomora, after the whole Ultraman Zero movie things, he would appear in Ultraman Ginga S as one of the Spark Doll monsters used by one of the Victorian champions, I believe. And he would go against the Ultras at first, but he would soon go to fighting with the Ultras once Fire Golza appears. And, well, unfortunately, he didn't survive. And I think his Spark Doll was destroyed in that episode. Anyways, after that whole thing happened, he would appear as his Spark Doll again, much more prominently in Ultraman X. However, he would have a sort of copy, I guess, as Cyber Gomora. Though that's a very different one, so I can't really count that. So whenever he appears in a few of the episodes as a Spark Doll, and is eventually turned into his real form in episode 22, I believe, of Ultraman X. They would try an experiment and bring back Gomora, and he's very obedient. That is until dark beams start striking the sky, and eventually hit Gomora, causing him to turn to EX Gomora, but with his eyes being red instead of clear white, I believe. So after that, he would go on a rampage around Japan and destroy an oil refinery or a very industrial place, and Ultraman X would soon be able to get that darkness out of him, and he would eventually turn him back to his Spark Doll. That may be what he wanted in the first place. However, moving on, he would next appear as an EX Gomora in the final episode of Ultraman X. However, he would also burst out of Grieza along with all the other Spark Dolls and into Ultraman X to finish the final battle. And after that, there'll be a few more episodes. No, be a few more Ultraman till we got to see Gomora again. He would next appear in Ultraman Orb as one of the monster cards used to awaken Maga Grand King, and that's pretty much the only appearance he has in there. So after Ultraman Orb, Ultraman Rube, I don't think he appeared in that, so moving on to Ultraman Jeed, or Ultraman Zet. Oh boy. Yeah, he would appear in Ultraman Z. Actually, no. My goodness. Yeah, Jeed. He would appear in Jeed as one of the monsters used in Skull Gomora. And that's basically a mix between Red King and Gomora, obviously. So, that's pretty much... He only appears in the formation sequences, I believe. So, moving on. So, after Ultraman Jeed, Ultraman Rube, he wouldn't really appear in that. So, nothing on there. Into Ultraman Z, Gomora would appear. He would be in slumber in one of the mountains after a certain fight. After a fight happened with Sevengar and I believe it was Gigas. However, he would soon be transported and the whole thing would turn upside down as he was awakened by the sudden change or sudden noises. Something happened that caused him to awake. However, he would soon go on a rampage in Japan and want to destroy everything in sight, as everything was new to him, I believe. So, yeah. Anyways, soon Ultraman Z would appear and defeat Gomora, and that's one of the last times we see him ever again. So that was basically his last appearance, I believe. So, yeah, that's his history. Quite a long one that took up a chunk of this video, but anyways, let's go on to abilities. Since he's a prehistoric monster, he can dig underground, and he's able to do an oscillatory wave. Now, this can be achieved in both his EX forms and normal forms. This is his normal form. As you can see with this horn, he's able to shoot his oscillatory ray or oscillatory waves through it at an opponent, causing devastating damage, whether it's just slowing them down, injuring them badly, or literally destroying them once hit. However, he can also aim straight for their opponent's chest and start just pulsing it inside of them as well. Then they'd eventually die and explode. When he's EX, the oscillatory wave comes out of his chest, so he would shoot it from his chest. And when he's in his Rayonic Burst mode, it will be a bit more powerful and have a purple hue to it through his horn, not his chest. However, in Ultraman 80s, as I mentioned before, he was able to shoot missiles, but that's Gomora 2. In Ultraman Powered, he didn't have any new abilities, just hitting, and he's basically pure tooth and claw in the old Ultraman episodes. And Ultraman Powered. But moving on, since Gomora hasn't really showed his oscillatory wave until Ultraman, you know what? I think that's it for abilities, really. Actually, no, he's also quite durable. And once his tail is cut off, then that would mean that it would move around everywhere. However, in Ultraman Ginga S, the tail was just ripped off him completely by Fire Golza, and, well, Gomora was easily defeated that way. Now, moving on. Okay. Now, since I still don't know the company of this card, so that's why I'm a bit out, but you can clearly see that it shows the old Gomora suit in these two photos right here on the card. I'm trying to focus. I don't think it... Okay, yeah, it won't. So now moving on. To compare him to something that has the same build as Red King, here is Aberos, or Aboris. I'd say it's fairly well. Aboris is actually, since Aboris is basically just Red King with a different head, I'd say that this is quite accurate. Probably. Now, scale him up with Silvergon. I believe this is accurate, though I'm not entirely sure. But seems accurate enough, so yeah. To scale him up with Mukundendar, though? Well, you know, he fought Mukundendar once, but the two were never seen fighting each other, so I'm not really sure if this is accurate or not. But seems good enough. Now, to move on with another prehistoric monster, but this one was engineered. This one was tampered with, so here we go. Neosaurus. Just gonna move the card out of the way. Neosaurus would probably be a bit taller than him, I'd say. Though, hang on. Let me do a bit of a comparison with Silver. Yeah, he will be bigger than Gomora, I believe. But a bit taller, probably this taller. But, yeah, seems to be it. And to scale him up with my playmates Gorosaurus. Now, this is the same Gomora that you saw in my review with King Saurus 3. They were with Rodan and Agira and that, but moving on. And I'd probably say this scales quite well. Gorosaurus is hunched, but that's to be expected with him. And Gomora, I believe, it's always much like this. Anyways. And I also have Rodan, playmates. Oh, crud. Oh, shoot. Oh, great, I'm having a bit of a hard time, sorry. I'd say this scales relatively well. Or Gomora would probably be the same size as Rodan, since he was the same size. Rodan was the same size as Godzilla in one of the movies. Anyways, for detail, he's not all that bad. A few scratches and a few scuffs, but that's to be expected with time. And I'm a bit unsure of why he has a black back. Though I suppose that's to be expected, as I think the original suit had that. This is obviously supposed to be black. The nails are painted yellow. This arm, unfortunately, is quite loose, so it moves around a lot more. Wiggles. The legs they seem accurate enough. He has about 4 toes. Actually, 3 front toes and one heel claw. And for his arms, he has 5 claws and one elbow spike. And I believe he's a carnivore or herbivore. I don't really know. I don't really know his diet all that well. So, yeah. Now, for this figure and where it was made, I'd say this is pretty good. Not exactly great, but you know what? No. He is great. All the Ultra Series 500 monsters, I'd say this, but they can't exactly compare to this guy. As I don't always like I'm gonna be honest, I don't really like the smaller scale of them. Though I suppose that's to be expected with things nowadays. Anyways, that seems to be it for this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. And leave your comments down below on who would you like me to have a review about next. So, bye. Also, before I go, please leave in the comments of who you think all those guys are in the background. They all have their own names, and for anyone who knows what they are, please leave your answers in the comments below.